Welcome to Cigar Science, and today we talk about hygrometers and measuring moisture. Because if you don't know how to do that, you can't fix a bad humidor. Now, if you remember the last episode, if you saw episode 1, it goes into how these gases, the water evaporates and becomes a gas. And it can escape right through the wood and through the varnish. Now, you won't hear that anywhere else on the internet. I watched all the channels. Nobody figured out that you need a vapor barrier to contain these gases. They didn't figure it out because, to tell you the truth, I didn't figure it out till I remembered as a plumber, because I'm a sprinkler contractor and I'm involved in plumbing. I remember them telling me that you can't just use any type of PEX product in a water heating system. And that's because when the water boils to 180 degrees and flows through your hydronic heat systems in your house, the oxygen works its way out of all the vents and the water becomes inert. And that inert water can circulate through a boiler for 50 years and it'll never rot. But if you put a piece of regular PEX product in, the oxygen can go through the plastic right into the boiler and rot that boiler. So they make vapor barrier plastic pipe. Now I thought, wait a minute. If the vapor can go right through a plastic pipe that can hold 160 pounds of pressure, or maybe 200 pounds of pressure, well then that means it could easily go through a wooden barrel where you're trying to age whiskey, like this. I'll show you this one here in a minute. Or it could go right through your humidor and through that varnish like through a goose. This is a 53-gallon pre-charred oak barrel with 53 gallons of White Dog in there. Not going to tell you how I got it, but it's in there. 53 gallons, baby. Now this thing is like 3/4 thick at least. In some places it's almost 7/8 thick, this oak. And yet oxygen can go right through here, and that's what ages whiskey. Oxygen goes through the wood. Now we've all heard of the angel share. That's the alcohol in the water that's in the 120 proof alcohol that's in here will eventually slowly escape over the years as we age it. So that's those gases passing out. Everybody can believe that happens, but what they don't really believe is that oxygen can actually go through right into the alcohol inside here and help age the liquor. But that's how I can tell you that your humidor's leaking, because this thing leaks is doing the same thing. That's when I put it together that it's not leaking just from the door, which does leak through the door sometime too, but mostly using a wooden humidor covered in varnish, in an environment where your house is less than 40% humidity, maybe even less than 50, would be a losing battle. You'd never be able to store cigars. So then I started doing experiments with moisture. And the biggest thing we're going to talk about today is how hard is it to measure moisture in the air? Well, another thing they never told me on any of the channels I went to. Nobody seemed to get it. And I talked to one of the guys who worked on and invented this product, the sensor push product, which I'm going to be talking a lot about this on the channel. I love this product. But they even said to me on the phone that it's really difficult to measure moisture. And they said the average person doesn't get it. And I always said it was because we have a normalcy bias in our minds, because when we look at a regular thermostat at our house for temperature, and we hear the weatherman says it's going to be 69 today, and you get outside and it says 69 in your pool area, and then you get in your car and on your dash it says 69. Boy, the weatherman was right today, it's 69 out. And everywhere you look, it's 69, 69, 69. All the readings are the same. And you start to think, well, every gauge you look at that looks like this, ooh, just like a clock, it's always going to be as accurate as the next clock, or the next pressure gauge, or the next thermometer. But when you start measuring moisture, it's not even close. Not even close. The average one of these things is only good plus or minus 5. There's a 10-point differential with something like this analog thing like this. A digital thing like this is plus or minus 3. So that's 6 points, right guys? Something like this, 1.5 up, 1.5 down, 3-point differential. Much, much better, but still, think about it. It's not like measuring temperature. So they don't have a really good way to measure moisture, and I'm about to tell you why. Measuring moisture is much more difficult because there's very little moisture in the air. I'll give you the general idea, right? The atmosphere we breathe and the air in your humidor is about 78% nitrogen. We breathe a nitrogen atmosphere. 21% of our atmosphere is oxygen. That leaves only 1% left. And 0.9 of that is argon, and at 0.1% left has every other gas, including CO2. So moisture, the most moisture we have in our air is somewhere between 0 and 2%. When water evaporates, it becomes a gas, and that gas stays water, okay? It's a water vapor, and it's floating around in the nitrogen atmosphere. It doesn't become part of the atmosphere. So you think if you test this spot right here, you're gonna get the same amount of moisture as you're gonna get in this spot. But you're not, because it's floating around. So these hygrometers are trying to read this spot right here where the air can go in. I think it's that little spot right there. Well, it's going to change a lot because the air is moving around. And water vapor is lighter than air, and it floats up. So as the air moves around in your humidor, it's hard to get a really accurate reading, and that's probably why you have a 3-point differential there. I tell you this because I want you to be well aware that it's very difficult to measure moisture, no matter how much money you spend. I mean, some of these laboratories spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 for a hygrometer, and it's not even that accurate. Maybe plus or minus a half and a half. But for $2,000, that's what it takes? The most expensive one I bought was this $500 one here. Let me hold it up here. Out there, and it's got this probe arm on it here that I drilled a hole in this cabinet so I could use this. And I use it mostly to monitor my own hygrometers and some of my tests. The thing about this one is it reads very quickly, and it reads in tenths, I mean, it reads in hundredths of a percentage. So I can watch it go from 72 to 72.1, 72.2. I can watch it going up and down. I can watch the experiments in real time with this thing. Whereas something like this reports every minute. So I got to wait for a while for it to adjust to the environment in there. But the thing about this is the data happens right now and you have no record of it. Whereas with this, I can look at the whole month, the whole year, the whole week, the whole day, and it'll show me patterns and trends. And I'm going to show you on the channel. In fact, we're going to stick a couple pictures in here where you can see what my phone looks like. I have like 18 of these things always testing, and I can look at it from my home or anywhere. Okay, we're going to do a little experiment here that can give you some general idea of how much moisture there is in just a couple of drops of water. Now, I could do it with one drop, but you have to wait a lot longer for the moisture to fill up the space. So I'm just going to do maybe 2 or 3 drops in here, maybe 3, and I'm going to put the cover on and I'm going to let you read it. Now, we're at about 31% humidity in here. Let's see what this thing's reading. It's reading about 32.2. I got the cover off, and there's the sensor. So I'm just going to take my little water dropper, and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. 3 little tiny drops in this space. And what this will do is give us, I want you to see how fast this will fill up with moisture. Okay, I just did the lid on. I'm going to lean this up here like this so you guys can get a look at it. I think you can get a camera shot of that lens. You'll watch it start to rise up. Now we're speeding this up for you, but the whole test took 26 minutes, and you can see how fast it's just going up. This is an actual vapor barrier box that holds moisture. All right, guys, that experiment just proves how much moisture there is in just a couple of drops of water. And after it went up to 70, now I went up to 72, as you notice, because that hygrometer is, you have to deduct 2 to get to 70. So it got to 72, that was really 70. So in 20 minutes or so, and we did time lapse there, we didn't time lapse, we just sped it up so you didn't have to sit through it, but basically in 20 minutes, this whole space filled with moisture, and still there was 3 drops left sitting in there. So there's a ton of water in a ton of gas in a drop of water. Now what I'm going to show you is an experiment that I do all the time on humidors. I'm going to put a bowl of water in a humidor with a hygrometer on it, and you're going to be able to watch the gauge, and let's see if we can get it to go above 50. Now, especially in a room like this where it's somewhere between 25 and 32, depending upon which one of these things you read, they're all different. That one over there, the one I'm bringing over is 27. So let me set that test up, and we're going to let that run on time lapse because it may take hours for it to reach maybe even 60. if it reaches 60. That's going to prove my point that the wood, of course, a lot of the moisture obviously is going to go directly into the wood when I first put it in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a whole bowl of water in there, which you would think would spike the humidity right up fast, but you watch, it won't. What we're going to do today is, this is a test that will show if you have maximum surface area, which is a bowl of water like this, kind of flat, nice flat surface of water. There's plenty of water in here. The test I just did was with drops, okay? This is drops times 1,000, all that surface area. Look at the size of it in there. And we're going to put this hygrometer in here because we can look at it from here without opening it, and we can watch how long it takes for the box and this whole humidor to come up to 70. And what it should do if it was a good humidor is go right past 70, right on up to 90, 95, because that's a bowl of water and it should release a ton of moisture. But we'll see what this does. Just to give you a general overview, this room between all these hygrometers is somewhere around 22 to 24. This one's reading 20, but you got to add 2 because these are all off by 2. So this is 22. This one that came on the thing is brand new. It's reading 24. The room up there says it's 22. So, you know what I mean? We're right in that ballpark around 22. So I'm going to close this up. We're going to try to get a camera going in time lapse somehow so you can see this thing go. I want to break in here and just show you these absolutely perfectly clear ice spheres I have. I'm not trying to sell anything. I'm just showing you that I'm having some wild turkey while I do this here. Because after we're done with this shot, I'm going out there to smoke a nice cigar, and I haven't even picked the one I'm going to smoke yet. But I wanted you to see these beautiful clear. Look at that. It's perfectly clear. A little bit of cloudiness in there, but not much. I'll show you the trick to how to make these on one of these episodes, but I go through a ton of these. All right, you're looking here. We're starting off at 20% humidity, and we're doing 6 hours. And we paused it here so you can see it. So that's your reading on the left and your hours in the front, obviously. And we're heading toward 24 hours, and you will see this thing's only going up 22 points in 24 hours. But now you'll watch how slow it goes. It's having a hell of a time keeping up here. By the time we get to about 13 hours from the end, it doesn't move. It stays right at 51, which is really 53. You have to add 2 points. So watch this, it barely moves at the end, just sits there. What's happening here is it's found a balance. There's moisture escaping through this humidor, and this room is at a certain percentage of dryness, and that bowl of water can only come up to a certain level, and then it can't go any higher. If it tries to go any higher than that, the room can suck the moisture out easier. So it's the same thing we talked about, vapor force. There's a balance happening. And this is balancing at 50. You'll have the same thing happen to your humidor if you, and the answer we've had up till now, oh, you need more moisture. Go out and buy a ton of those packets and throw bunches of them in there. And yeah, okay, boy, she goes to 70 now, but it costs a fortune. You're buying packets, throwing them away, and there's not a lot of room in here. I've got friends of mine had 5, 6 of those big packets in their humidor trying to keep up. What we want to do is solve the problem. We want to seal this thing up as much as we can so that we use less water. And there's 2 things that can happen. One, you could buy less of those packets and save a little money, or you could buy a Humigard and it'll go a whole year without having to add any water and save some money and a lot of headaches. So one way or the other, we get the problem solved, but nothing will work if we don't fix this humidor. So this is episode 2. We've done 1 and 2, and I've tried to give you the data you need on vapor drive and on how humidors lose moisture. Now in episode 3, I'm going to show you how to fix a wooden humidor. And episode 4 will probably go into fixing the wine cooler styles, which we'll get into that. There's a lot to learn on that one too. But thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking around. Hey, hit that like and subscribe, and I'll send, you'll get a notification. Ring that bell when I do the repair for this, which should be coming out in less than a week. Thanks a lot for coming over, guys. Charlie Factor here. Cigar Science, people. The perfect smoke requires perfect humidity. Get Humigard today.